And we're live. Welcome to the Airsoft GI live show on August 16th. That's Josh in the front end of the frame. We've got Greg, a.k.a. Greg Wong, a.k.a. Spartan 117GW, and a very special guest today, one Kevin Vance. Yay! Great clap, Greg.
Yeah.
There was much rejoicing.
Sergeant Peters.
That's right. Now, you guys may know Kevin from a variety of different movies, most recently Suicide Squad. One of my favorites, however, is Fury as well. Can you tell our viewers just a little bit of your background in the movie industry and the military?
Sure. I started out in the Navy, was in the SEAL teams. I was on the West Coast for a little while. I was there for about 7-8 years and then left the West Coast, went to the East Coast where I finished up my career, and in total about 15 years. And then I moved back to the West Coast and just fortuitously met a couple people in Hollywood. It was never by design, just happenstance, and met David Ayer. I ended up helping David Ayer out on a couple smaller projects that he was working on, End of Watch, and then I worked on Sabotage, and then Fury landed on his lap because he wrote it.
Touche. Yes.
And then he gave me a call, and that was the first production that I had worked on front to back with that massive budget that it had, and then from there was Suicide Squad, and I helped Brad Pitt on another project in the UAE for Netflix, and I'll be helping Dave out on his new project Bright for Netflix this fall.
Oh, so those are I didn't, when you mentioned before, I didn't realize that was a Netflix production. That's pretty crazy.
There's a lot more than
No, I know, they're getting huge into original content. It's absolutely amazing, and it's good content too.
Very, very good. The Netflix has a great reputation in the community now because of the freedom they allow the directors and the artists to take and crafting their own stories, whereas I think that studio productions are a little bit more bureaucratic. More money obviously are involved, more distribution, but Netflix is fighting that with freedom.
That's nice. Yeah. That is, freedom will always win. Now, going back to some of, I guess, your military history, you were in the SEALs, and was all 15 years of that spent in the teams?
No, I left the West Coast, got recruited out of that. I went to go work for the government for a little while. I did some time in Washington, D.C., working in counterterrorism, and then I spent a good portion of those years overseas, and then just tried to chase other opportunities before the 40 mark.
Touche. Now, I just want to let you guys know, Kevin is being a complete champ by coming out here and being on the live show. Greg's also pretty cool. He's kind of cool. But Kevin, you've been up for 48 hours, right?
No, I can't say 48 hours.
Well, you've been up for a long time.
I've been at work the last 48 hours. I'm a firefighter in Orange County now. My side gig is working in Hollywood, so to speak. And it's a challenge to balance those schedules. I've been very, very lucky though in that respect. But working as a firefighter does have its challenges. You're at work for 48 hours straight on our schedule. But then again, the positive thing is that I'm back in a team environment. There's a lot of camaraderie in our department, and certainly other services. I do quite a bit in our training department off and on when I can. And I just try and balance out that side of the man. I think that we all have the beast, whether it's with the fire department and that unifying element of service that the guys perform and the girls perform out there, just like in the military. Jiu-jitsu on my days off.
Nice.
Hollywood when it comes up, and it's all good.
Well, like I said before, you sound like a very lazy guy. Now, if you guys have any questions for Kevin, or perhaps Greg, or maybe even myself, please throw it in the comment section. And before we go into any more stories about the movies you've been in, you mentioned something before about Fury that I would love for you to tell our viewers, if you can, about the 88 round. But before we go into that, I'd like you to tell them about your charity. Your charitable work.
Okay. Well, it's kind of funny, things just come into your life for whatever reason, and you kind of have to evaluate that. I created this logo that you see on the hat that Greg's wearing and I'm wearing for the company that Nate Brown and myself run. and people took to it. A couple of friends that we worked for, and with in the industry, and we just started giving them some hats. They liked it. It was a little memento for them on the projects that we worked on, and there was a little bit of traction there. People were very interested in the logo, what it meant, and just simply the design as well, the overall look basically. And then working with David Ayer, this last movie on Suicide Squad, he really didn't like the look of the main character's hat at that particular moment in these specific scenes, and basically asked me, he's like, how many hats do you have? I said, I got 6 more in the car, and he's like, go get them. So my hat ended up on the main character, which was, again, I had to evaluate, maybe there's an opportunity to do some great things with this because of the audience that's going to be on the receiving end of it. And so we connected with some veterans charities, some nonprofits, and what we'd like to do is raise awareness for veterans causes with some very small independent nonprofits who get veterans out there challenged again, so that they're not just supported monetarily through the larger organizations. These smaller organizations, what's so good about them is they get them out engaged, challenged, and out there accomplishing something and back into sort of a communal organization. And there's some great folks out there doing some great work, but they need some help. So this is the way we can help them.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, it seems like a lot of things in your life revolve around community service or service to something bigger than yourself, like not only the military, the firefighting, the hats, the charitable work. So I think it's really interesting about, you in particular, but also seemingly the folks in the United States Armed Forces. Now, out of curiosity, actually, just to our viewers, we do actually have some product we want to show you. Greg was nice enough to bring by the new PTS stock. We have some scars that we want to show you that are going to be going on special, as well as in the mystery box that went live today. And you said something very interesting before we got on here, that one of your friends or an acquaintance of yours actually helped develop the scar.
I think Greg can answer this question a little
bit. Oh, that's
more.
right.
He's more familiar.
You mentioned that.
He's
Okay.
more
We
familiar
both
with
know
it.
the same guy.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, Greg, take it away.
Yeah.
So
Wait.
Well,
Grab one of the scars first. Okay.
that's all. While I'm grabbing one of the scars.
Okay. So a gentleman that I had served with in the Navy, he's so well versed in weapon systems. It's just one of those niches that he was naturally drawn to, and he developed the weapon system, with FN, and it's got a lot of traction. It ended up in a lot of platoons and the teams I know, and I know a lot of guys that do love it. So hats off to Monty. I haven't seen Monty in years and years and years. But we went to some specialized schools together. Great guy, very, very sharp. And Greg just recently had a run-in with him.
Well, yeah. What's interesting is that his friend Monty is actually he's actually also the owner of Centurion Arms, which is one of the PTS licenses that we have. So small world, but yeah. So essentially, we work with Monty as a business partner in the small world.
Yeah.
Wait. Does he own Centurion Arms?
He is Centurion Arms.
I remember meeting him at SHOT Show. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
I didn't speak to him very long.
Beard.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So many guys have beards at SHOT Shows.
You're kidding. No. So we actually have a few questions, and this is from Ralph. His socks, please forgive me if I said your name improperly. I think you missed the beginning of the show because you were asking, has Kevin ever served in the military? Kevin, have you ever served in the military?
I did. I went to college in San Diego. I graduated. After I graduated college in San Diego, I enlisted in the military with the intent of obviously getting into the SEAL teams, graduating, which I did. And then I was living in Texas for about 7-8 months in a specialized medical course. And after that, we got to select our teams based on our grade point average in that specific course. And I came back to the West Coast. I'm a big West Coast guy. Born on the East Coast, mind you. But there's something about the ocean, the salt's in my veins, and
the weather's good over
if you're
here.
too far away from it for too long, then the itch just it just overwhelms you, and you got to find your way back there somehow.
Touche. Now, some of the folks were also asking, what team did you serve on? Can you say that? Or?
Yeah, I was on Team 5 out on the West Coast. Served with some great guys who've done many things, who continue to do many great things out there. Certainly, like a lot of the different military units that are continuing to serve overseas. But it's it was sort of my bedrock, and my launching point, where from there I got to work with various units, a lot of Marine units, a lot of different Army units, and I got a lot of exposure to different methodologies and tactics from a lot of very, very sharp men and women out there, and serve honorably with a host of great folks. So I always look back those experiences as very, very rewarding. It's served me personally very, very well.
That's
and I'm
awesome.
humbled by it.
Wow, that's a damn good answer. Now, someone actually asked about how important camouflage is to you. Now, I assume pretty much in the military, but I bring it up basically because there's a new camouflage, from what I know, created for Suicide Squad, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Bravo Flash?
Yes.
So, one, to answer his question, how important have you found camouflage to be in the military? And can you tell us anything about Bravo Flash?
Well, yeah, obviously in the military, it's serving a purpose,
Yes.
right? Obviously, it's gone from simple function of camouflaging, as the name would say, you in a certain environment, to functional as
Mm-hmm.
well. So if you look at where Cry Precision has taken camouflage in terms of its function,
Mm-hmm.
and its durability, that's kind of taking systems to the next level. And I think guys are loving those systems. And in terms of the movies, is what's so unique about the movies, and for the audience out there, I know that you can nitpick a lot of things in different movies, but there's a benchmark in the movie world. If you look at a movie like Zero Dark 30, and they were going for authenticity,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, true blue across the board. It's good and bad. It's very, very good in the sense of that's the way it was. It's bad for the viewer, because then if you're following a main character or you're following an individual through a scene, you can get lost because everyone looks the same. So, you play with those things, and you have to play with them in movies, because you have to give individual characters individual items and/or kind of one-offs, so that they stand out in their own unique way. And Bravo Flash, it's something that David Ayer developed with Owen Thornton. Was very, very well educated in the history of camouflage, and they pieced together a system that was kind of an amalgamation of all these different patterns that existed out there, but with a new color pattern.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason Dave used that is to the eye in normal everyday light, you would look at the color pattern and you would say to yourself, well, no way.
Yeah.
But on screen, with the particular lighting and the particular lenses that they were using, it really stands out. And Dave had that forethought. Obviously, as a great director, he's already 12 steps ahead of you,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks great on screen.
It looked really good.
Yeah.
No, it does. I've only seen a few of the gunfights, but damn, it looked good. Let's see. Yes. Have you ever played Airsoft or tried Airsoft before?
I have not. I know certainly a lot of people that do.
There you go, Greg.
But it's just a matter of time, really. I've just been, very, very busy with 2 careers,
Mm-hmm.
and recently got married a couple years ago to my beautiful wife. Trying to spend the time off that I do have with her and do a little bit of traveling. But it's what I find fascinating about it is something we talked about earlier. Is the importance of community,
Mm-hmm.
and the military certainly has that. Fire departments certainly have that. Law enforcement agencies have that. The camaraderie, and CrossFit is really building on that. Jim Jones is trying to do that as well. And you take a community like Airsoft, and they're coming together, with I guess common interests, really, and fascinated. And it's funny to me, in the sense of I could go to an armorer in the military, anywhere in the United States, and I would venture to bet that there are a lot of people in the Airsoft community that know more about systems than professional armorers out there. And that speaks to people's passions and what's drawn to them. And again, the importance of it is community, and people coming together under whether it's a common banner or common values. So it's pretty cool.
That's dope. That is dope. Let's see. We had another question for you, and I think I may have lost it. Oh, okay, good. This is from Apocalyptic Gaming. Good to see you here again, buddy. What was your favorite scene in Suicide Squad?
Oh, favorite scene.
Might have some tough decisions here. I don't know.
Margot
Margot is
yeah.
exceptionally talented. I would say the hardest working individual, without a doubt on that movie. She had a lot to offer, and certainly a lot to prove in a dominant male cast, and her performances were the most varied. So she was doing sort of gymnastic moves, in her little cell, in her box, to her fight scenes that she conducted herself.
Really?
To her own stunts, and she was firing weapons using a bat. She dealt with minimal coverage in very, very cold conditions in Canada. She always sucked it up, never complained.
Wow.
Was always very, very, very positive, and had a very dynamic character on top of all of it.
Yes.
So there was the love interest to being this this psychotic character that had to get in all these very elaborate fight scenes. So I can't speak to necessarily the one scene. I wish the gunfight scenes that we created were a little bit longer, because we had spent weeks filming them.
Worked on those for a while.
And there were multiple gunfights that we had shot that were very, very dynamic, very elaborate gun scenes, but ultimately in the end it didn't serve the purposes of the movie. But we did spend weeks, literally weeks on set filming these things, and we had world-class stuntmen from Australia and from Canada. We've done some great work. So the action sequences, to me, certainly are.
Hopefully it'll make it into either extended cut or even all the behind the scenes footage and stuff.
Let's go have you talk to the Warner Brothers execs right now.
Yeah.
Let's go do that.
Now the Airsoft chemist is asking, what exactly did you do in Suicide Squad? I think they're asking were you
role or character was?
Yeah. So front to back?
Absolutely.
Front to back. So I met with David Ayer here in Los Angeles. We kind of created a game plan. Dave had to immediately take off to Canada in, I think it was December of 2014, to set up everything for pre-production. And I was here, LA based, until about April of 2015. So my role really here was to facilitate the needs of the characters, Deadshot, Scott Eastwood, Alex Mraz, and Joel Kinnaman, get them functioning weapon systems on a very efficient level, and make it dynamic. We used real weapons, we used real rounds, we had an open range. And we built a foundation for them so that we could move into more dynamic exercises, and then get into mindset, and the mindset of the warrior, the ethos, and expose them to a myriad of different warrior cultures throughout history, to build a historical foundation for them as well, so they could have some character depth. And then once we got into Canada, we had to hand select all of the stuntmen that would play SEALs in the movie, and that was a gift that Dave gave me. So we got to pick 22 guys out of dozens and dozens of stuntmen up there, and we trained them for 2 weeks. We had about $50,000 in blanks. So it wasn't just a functioning weapon system, it was working through malfunctions, it was doing transition drills, it was reload drills, so that unlike a lot of movies that you do see, what we like to pride ourselves on is there a lot of movies you'll see is there's the endless magazine. And to a lot of guys out there, it's just like things could be a little bit more creative, right? Or more dynamic, and that's the way we wanted it. We wanted guys in the background to constantly changing mags, or cover fire for guys when they were, hey, I'm down, I need to change a mag, stepping over a guy, firing to cover them. Hey, I'm up, getting back on their feet and engaging the enemy. So we worked very, very hard to create those sequences and make the stunt guys function on a very, very high level. and it paid off. You know,
They
something
look great on screen. Yeah.
something we mentioned earlier too is you know, in the end, you know, those skills that we introduced to a lot of the stuntmen that had never been exposed to it before, you know, we built a great relationship with those guys, because those skill sets that they have now for the first time in their career, they will use the rest of their career.
Absolutely.
Any other project where they're using
Yeah,
firearms,
and great,
they're gonna,
yeah, and great guys.
Now, Greg, I actually met an acquaintance or a friend of yours at SHOT Show that was in Suicide Squad as well. Asian.
Dave.
Yeah, Dave. That's right.
So he met Dave too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really fun
Yeah.
talking to him.
He was the one, like, he had some footage of him, like, shooting.
Yeah,
stuff
and then
like
falling
that,
over
and then
dead.
falling over,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, that was him.
That's awesome.
Small
Now
stuff.
let's see.
Small worlds.
We got a couple quick questions for you, and then I desperately want to get onto you dying by 88 millimeter shell, and then go on to the PTS stock. Now, a lot of folks are asking, you know, what is your favorite weapons platform? Like rifle, pistol, like which, like we were talking about the HK416 earlier, but if you had to choose a favorite rifle, like what would be your favorite based on your experience?
You know, it's really hard to say. You know, the way I can answer that, and I know that's not going to serve your audience very, very well, is, you know, a hammer to me is a hammer, and a tool to me is a tool, and I have to swing it a lot, you know, to figure out, you know, whether that ergonomically works for me and my thought process as well. So, you know, for instance, I have no shame in telling you I have limited experience with the Scar. I know a lot of guys love it, but in a way that's personal preference though too, right? So it includes any M4 platform. I can make anything I want today. I can make any modification I want to today. I can experiment to a certain level that it won't diminish my function. But that's the most important thing about weapon systems to me is like, once you build muscle memory, that's the most vital thing for gunfights, for instance, right? Is that's something that can never be compromised. So if the you know, the military has handed you that M4, you've made the appropriate modifications to yourself and your physicality, because everyone's different. Greg, right here, big, muscle, 6'5", 250 pounds. Clearly, right?
Yeah.
His setup's going to be a lot different, right? So the rail system, you know, that's his option. So the beautiful thing about my former communities was, it's job performance matters, not what specifically is on your weapon system and how it's put there. No one's going to tell you this has to be a certain way, because in the end, results matter, correct? And that's what guys go for. Is like, hey, if I have the lower I need to have, the upper, right, is pretty standardized, but the rail system, right, if you're throwing the PEC system on, if you've got Raptor system from Wilcox, you know, what optic, guys have different, you know, even, hey, I have a lazy right eye, it goes out of focus sometimes. I like certain optics better than others, right? So really experimenting, I love experimenting, because it's the first way to tell you that didn't work.
Fair play.
And you know, and you modify as you go.
Awesome. We have Eric Mason from Disposable Heroes. It's an airsoft team that's mostly former military or current military. It's saying functionality, practicality, reliability. And speaking of that, it's interesting your philosophy on those systems, because we get questions here a lot, like, hey, what's the best gun? Like, what's the best thing you can get? And a lot of times it's about like, hey, you know, for airsoft, it's like, you know, what gun are you going to have the most fun with? It's not about like, hey, you know, who are you going to go out there and just, you know, waste everybody with? It's like, pick the gun you're going to have the most fun with, that you can operate and just have a great all darn day gameplay. And you said something before the show began that I found very interesting. That was, and correct me, I'm just paraphrasing here, but it's like, it's not about the weapon's function, it's about how you function with the weapon.
Yes.
Is that about right?
Yeah, and you know, a lot of I've been the beneficiary of working in a lot of very wise, experienced men in the community. And something that came across me as a very young man was, you know, the gun is really an extension of you. So don't think of it as something that's independent of you. So when that system is set up for you, and you tweak to a level where you're at your most efficient, and you can function with the greatest performance, then that's what matters, right? It's not, hey, you know, there's guys out there that bling their Ferrari. It's like, but what's under the hood? It's the same thing. It's just, my mindset needs to be in the right place. My physical well-being needs to be in the right place, right, for this vehicle to perform at its highest. And the weapon system is just an extension of that. So how quickly I reload, how quickly I engage a target acquisition, all of that, those are skills that you build with time. And well, they'll say muscle memory, but that includes this muscle as well. So it's one of those things where working with stuntmen on the forum, or your friend Dave, it's like we did drills and drills and drills and drills until the instructors ourselves saw what we call saturation. You guys are getting tired, they're getting worn out. Let's take a break, let's step away from that. Because you get to a point of failure, you get to a point of frustration, and skills that begin to dwindle. So you just take a step back, hey, let's move on to something else, right? And that's what I'm a huge proponent of muscle memory.
Yep. And that's interesting you mentioned that, because we were talking before about, you don't have as much experience on scars. However, you do know some folks that have used it that do like this platform.
Yes.
But for you, when we were discussing, you were talking about how a lot of things were different from what your muscle memory taught you, or what you taught your muscle memory. The charging handle is a different spot. The gun functions a little bit differently. So, as far as how you will function with your weapon, it wouldn't be as well as you would with the normal platform you're used to training on. Correct?
Yes.
However, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that goes back to what I was talking about with performance. Is if you're introducing something, you don't want to introduce that, let's say, in, when you know that you're going to be in a potential worst case scenario within a certain period of time. You want to become so familiar with that system that, again, it just becomes an extension of you, where there's no forethought or afterthought. Everything is subconscious. So all of my actions are automated. And that's what you go for with the weapon systems. When you get to a point where you're not thinking about the weapon system and it functioning independently, you've done a skill over and over and over again. You've repeated it so many different times that it's second nature. So you have a view of the world as opposed to
just focusing on what you're physically doing.
Correct.
Yeah. That makes far too much sense. Now, Greg, you did bring out, before we get to the 88mm shell story, you did bring out the new PTS stock. I know a lot of viewers, I'm sure, are wanting to hear about it, and I'm actually playfully curious as well. So why don't you be a lamb and show us?
So this is our new stock. What's kind of cool is I've actually been running this stock for a while, which I've been getting a little spoiled in that way, but it's a very cool stock because it's designed specifically for battery capacity. So we pop the butt plate off. It's extremely simple, just a pinch, and it has one little hinge at the top. And mine's personally set up to Dean's. But what's really cool is that it's designed to function with these batteries.
Oh, damn.
So these are 100 milliamp LiPo batteries. A lot of stocks out there can't really fit this in.
I was just going to say, those are kind of big.
I'm a big fan of crane stocks because it keeps you in the game for a significant amount of time. So, for example, these side tubes, they're actually squared off. So these will fit in there, no problem. Because typically, let's see, one in there.
Get one in there.
There we go.
Nice and deep.
So you got that in there. I can plug it if I want to, but right now I'm just going to put that there. So just set that up. Pinch. Oh, let's see. That one wires pushing. There we go. So as you see, super easy to install. One reason why this is really cool too, maybe you don't have the large battery, but you have two of the regular buffer tube batteries, which most of the players out there that are using,
you get a spare, and then you get
run a spare.
Yeah, that's
just
smart.
Swap it right there in the field, because there's nothing that sucks more, and it's happened to me time and time again. Your battery is running low, especially if it's a LiPo. You can't let it drain.
No.
So you're like, okay, I gotta stop using this gun right now. Then you gotta walk off the AO, and you gotta go to your car, and you gotta switch battery. You go to the staging, you switch battery. A lot of players will carry extra batteries on them. This just cuts down the time, makes it more efficient. You just swap it right then and there. The stock is designed so you can actually have a brick battery in here, or you can have one in the buffer tube, or you can have them in the side tube. So it's kind of like like the ACS stock, but on basically on steroids essentially, and really geared toward airsoft. Has a limited rotation QD sling point here and a standard sling point here. So limited rotation helps so that when you use a QD, you don't get bound up with the rifle, like swinging and spinning and everything like that. So Yeah, and all those features, it also actually has a really cool stock adjustment right here. Unlike the Magpul stock, you don't need a tool to remove the stock from the platform itself. So it's very easy to install and even easier to use, easier to swap your batteries.
Pricing and release date.
It's going to be super affordable. It's shooting for $45.
Nice.
And release date very, very soon. Hopefully by the end of the month or early next month.
Highly acceptable.
And this is going to be excellent for all rear-wired guns, ERGs, M4s, gas blowback, or AEGs.
Okay. Now, actually, Greg, I'm curious. I assume you're going to be using those on pretty much all of your guns, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
pretty much what I use exclusively on all my rifles.
And speaking of that, and this is completely off topic of the stock, I finally had a chance to use the PTS EPM Mags that you gloriously provided to me at the last game, and they fed flawlessly. So thank you again, Greg, and I will be using those pretty much forevermore now. Let's see. There was the 88 millimeter story. So to preface with you guys, this gentleman Kevin was in fury, and you got to choose the manner of your demise.
Well, let's just say I was in pre-production for a long period of time, working with the actors and facilitating a lot of the training, running a boot camp prior to shooting, and I knew what was coming because I was well versed with the script. I just happened to have a conversation with the director before and talking about creating a very unique death. Mm-hmm. We know in a lot of war movies, everyone can get shot, you can get blown up. Every once in a while, there's the flamethrower, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Fair play.
But I made it a point to have an unforgettable death. And Dave was happy to oblige, being the twisted individual he can be sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm in the tank, and we get in a battle with the Tiger tank, a nearly indestructible tank that the Germans had in World War II, and they fire this massive 88 millimeter round, and it does take my head off.
Yeah.
There goes the tank commander.
You haven't seen Boondock Saints, have you?
I have.
You know the part where he shoots a cat?
Yeah.
Is it dead? Yeah, you were so dead. So unbelievably dead in that one.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a part of the movie where I was like, oh god! Yeah, he's screwed. He's totally dead.
Like, oh my.
Yeah, that is a hell of a movie death.
I didn't even tell my wife. She knew I died. She had no idea. First time she saw it was in the theater, and her jaw dropped. Yeah,
really?
She looked at me, and I'm laughing, and she's mortified.
She's just seen her husband die.
You didn't give her any heads up or anything?
No.
That's funny.
It's part of the fun of it.
Oh, man. Let's see here. I assume you'll probably have the same answer for this one, but Kevin, do you have a favorite optic you like using on firearms?
I have multiple firearms. I like to play with different optics. I'm actually considering going to shoot left-handed, like I talked about earlier, because my right eye. I was born with a lazy eye, so there's a little bit of macular degeneration that I have going on. I've talked to a lot of competition shooters and shooters about making that switch and going to my left eye. So I'm kind of experimenting now because eye relief is a little bit different. But I do like the aim points, the T1s, T2s. Certainly the EOTechs have some. Know a lot of guys that use EOTechs. They're really, really good. Having that big of a window, certainly has its advantages. But the new magnified systems that are out there, if you're throwing a 3-time magnifier for your aim points, or even the 1 to 6s that they have out there right now that Trigicon's making. And I know they're pricey, but we talk about function, right? And whatever you could foreseeably see yourself engaged in, that's going to require some forethought. Like, hey, is it close up? What can I use? Target acquisition is all about speed, right? And aim point's freaking fantastic for that.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? If there's a potential, like, hey, I got to reach out and touch somebody, you throw that 1 to 6 on there, you can have some fun.
No, that's very true. I mean, there's definitely a lot of folks in Airsoft who use the magnifier add-on. However, in Airsoft, I mean, as you might imagine, the engagement distances are not that long. So it's mainly for a lot of times for looks or spotting.
It's typically out to 50 yards, maybe a little bit more if you have like one of the higher end guns or a very tuned gun. But that's about the average long range engagement distance, is about 150 yards or so.
All right. So my question to you guys, I have a question now. So could you see, let's say, somebody you're competing against who's really good at stalking and holding up, throwing that 3-time magnifier on there and just saying, I'm just going to lay low for a bit and then just see if I can spot, movement and or the enemy or, who I'm going after, right? So that three-time magnifier, depending on the playing field, right, could be an advantage.
I mean, from what I've found, like having like something that's a standard like 4x32 or like an ACOG or something like that, it's really good for friend or foe identification because guys are running all kinds of different camo out there. And sometimes they're pretty close, and you're just like, is that a bad guy? Is that a good guy? Okay, that's definitely a bad guy. Or sometimes you don't get a clear silhouette of the enemy. It's just like their arm or their limb, and you're like, is that a tree branch? Is that guy's shoulder sticking out? Then you get a clear picture, and like, okay, that's definitely a guy. And he's leaning out a little bit, and then you can do whatever you gotta do. But sometimes the magnified optics really do come in handy.
I have actually only had one time in my entire Airsoft career, and I've been playing for about a little less than 20 years, where binoculars or a zoom scope actually came in handy. Have you been to Fort Knox or Operation Irene?
No, I haven't been to Operation Irene.
We got to go to this place called Zussman. It's a training course at Fort Knox, and it's really built up, a lot of buildings, and we built that gun right there at the top center. It's a Polar Star gun. It's a Polar Star DMR. It's got an obscene amount of range compared to most of our guns, and that was the only time using binoculars actually came in handy. I was like, oh, hey, all the crap I brought, this is useful. So every now and again, yeah, like there's not a whole lot of people who are in ghillie suits, but the folks that know what they're doing, it's kind of hard to see sometimes, like Novridge. So.
Oh yeah.
He's
like
good.
Guys who have really tuned sniper rifles have a very, very big advantage. As long as they don't get too close, because then they'll get overwhelmed and overrun really fast.
Yeah, it hurts when you get shot by those. Okay, so we talked about you getting shot in the face with an 88 millimeter gun. Let's see, you were on Sabotage. Oh, End of Watch. I wanted to bring this up because you're like, yeah,
I love that scene.
I worked on this small film called End of Watch, and for me, that's not a small film. That's a badass movie.
You got to try out Jake Gyllenhaal. That's great.
Yeah, you got to what?
Well, End of Watch, when I refer to it as small, it was my first introduction to the film industry on set. At the time, it was a $6 million budget.
Really?
It was a 21-day shoot. So Dave said, I really need your help. What do you need? It was great as a firefighter. What we did is we got to bring Jake and Mike Pena down to a live burn. So we created a flashover container, a room, got them all geared up. They got exposed to fire behavior and a flashover, so they could get a sense of that. So when they run into the building to save those kids in their division, the Rampart division there in their neighborhood, shooting Newton. So they had some real life exposure to that. Did a little bit of work with those guys just on line set. I know that Jake's character was supposedly a former Marine, returning back, and he's a fairly new police officer. So that was very, very unique on that set. I know that the movie was very, very successful with a certain demographic and fans. It was a great start for me because here I am starting off a movie career where a director says, "Can you help me out?" Yeah, I can help you out. Then he says, "Can you play this federal officer in this movie?" And I had read the script, and it was void of any lines for this character. And David Ayer is known to experiment kind of like a chemist, and or with weapon systems, as we were talking about earlier. And he just said, "I want you to read these lines," 20 minutes before I was supposed to go on set.
Wow.
So he kind of threw me to the wolves. We got through it, and it seemed to work. Dave got what he wanted, and working with that level of actor, whether it's Mike and Jake certainly, was a very, very unique but in the end rewarding experience.
Wow.
It was awesome.
No, I mean, that was a great film, and I see what you mean now by being a small film, because I would have expected a much bigger budget than $6 million for that movie.
The budget did grow because Dave wanted some aerial shots. I know that Dave spent some of his own money, getting the shots that he needed. But they saw huge potential for the film once they saw the rough cut with the $6 million that they did have. So I think in the end they spent another $1 million. And like I said, some of that being Dave's money. He had full faith in the film, and it paid off. I mean, it resonated with people. I think that the movie industry really needs to pay attention to writers and directors who are kind of working in that space, because I think we're all very, very hungry for honest storytelling.
Absolutely.
And that's what made that story unique, is not only do we have a very diverse cast, we have two guys from different walks of life that come together, that start a family together as brothers, and have these shared experiences and look out for one another in the worst possible places in our communities. And yeah, it's a great story.
No, it very much is. I was actually blown away the first time I saw it, just how gritty and real it felt. And if you guys haven't seen End of Watch, please go see it, unless you're under 18, in which case you will need your parents' permission. Now, a lot of folks, a lot of you guys out there are asking me to tell Kevin the 9-banger story. He's got so many stories that are way cooler than that it's almost worthless. However, I would like to ask you, you're, I assume, familiar with 9-bangers, flashbangs or whatnot.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any of those thrown at you or used against you?
Yeah, it's I don't know what the concussive effect is within your community. Certainly in our community, the concussive effect is one component. Obviously the flash of light, and then the sound. So you're dealing with 3 elements. Depending on the ambient light, depending on it's obviously indoors
which is way worse.
Captured space. Versus the outdoors, but yeah, those things can be very debilitating. But it all kind of depends on where you are, what time of day is, and all those other things.
Very true. Yeah. Well, just to give you a preface, so you guys, I will have said, I told you guys, we had at Fort Knox, we had an airsoft event, and one of the folks that was field staff at Fort Knox came up to me at night, and he was going to throw a 9-banger into a bank, and he was like, "Hey, before you go in there, I've got this. I'm going to throw it in there." I was like, "Dude, are you sure that's cool, man?" He was like, "Yeah, I'm game staff." And then because he maybe realized it bad, he was like, "It'll be fine." And then throws it in, it goes off, and even though people we have warrant orders for these airsoft events, and even though you're supposed to read them, not everybody reads them, this guy included. So, it went off, and the people in that room, even though we breached right after that, they didn't give a crap. They were just very, very upset, as you might imagine. And I think a lot of it has to do with that. No one expected that to happen. No one expected, as a civilian, to have like a flashbang or 9-banger thrown in on you, and I would assume it'd be a very shocking event. I mean, I assume the first time it happened to you, the flashbang, it might have been a gut check or just a surprise.
Well, like anything, you have to react to what's in your environment, and when you have something that's pressurized gas being released at the rate that it is, it's that wave moves through you, right? It's not something you're familiar with, and I don't think you ever truly get familiar with that feeling.
Yeah.
So it can kind of put you back on your heels for sure. And if you're not exposed to any explosions whatsoever, be it mild or very, very large. Most of the times in trainings there's some expectation, right? We can expect those things, but certainly in that instance, we're talking about just building construction. Banks are rated, and they rate them based on how secure they are, and there's all this criteria for that. But you're talking about reinforced walls. So what are reinforced walls going to do?
Reflected back on you.
Right, reflected right back on people. So they're kind of getting double effect, trapping all of that. So to the gentleman that did that, maybe use a little more foresight.
Kind of a dick move, I would think. I mean, I think the second he was like, "It'll be fine." He's like, "That's you shouldn't have done that."
Or just kudos to you because you did something no one else has done before.
Yeah,
it goes either way.
I remember I was about to breach and then it went off. I was like, I gotta watch this. Like this is absolutely insane.
It's too cool.
But moving on real quick, Greg, would you be a lamb and grab me the SSR and the Scar Light, pretty please? So just we're actually getting near the end of the show, and in case you guys were not aware, we actually had a mystery box go live today that was packed to the gills with VFC scars. Now VFC scars normally in the market they're available for around $400, $390, or even a lower price as of lately. However, I do not believe you'll find it a lower price than our mystery box, and I say that because there's about 185 units in the mystery box. I believe most of them have already sold, or at least over half of them. But 150 out of the 185 are VFC scars. And for $225.99, that is a stupid cheap deal. And we have multiple different models available. We have the Scar Heavy, which Greg just took off. We've got Scar Light, CQC, and Standard. We've got 2 variations of the Scar SSR. And like I mentioned before, the Scar Heavy in both CQC and Standard. So if you guys have ever been looking for a Scar, ever been interested in the platform, I actually own one of these myself, and a lot of my coworkers here have tuned the heck out of them, and they perform very well. So if you guys are looking for that, check out our mystery box, our Future Weapons mystery box available right now. Future Weapons. And it also has a monster box with, I believe, 5 different guns, ranging from DMR, assault rifle, submachine gun, pistol, and on. So you have a lot of chance at some really great guns, or even a monster box. And a lot of the other guns in there are pretty legit. Specifically, what was the one that I was a big fan of? I think it was a gas blowback Masada. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And we just had a question. Greg, like, when is the ERG Masada coming out?
They're tweaking some of the internal design mechanisms, so still a little ways off.
But you guys are going to make sure it's good to go before you release it. So, but no estimated date. You're just
no
still working on
ETA
it.
just
Okay.
yet. It's still a work in progress.
Okay.
Oh, fun fact about the Scar, especially this platform. One of the reasons why the rail system is so long is so they can put night optics
Really?
on the front. That's why. That's one of the reasons. Yeah.
Specific to the SSR.
Well, I mean, you typically find that like on like longer platforms, is like so they can put other stuff in front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Night optics are big. They're huge.
Well.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a fun little fact.
Well, very well played, sir. And just to reiterate one more time, actually, not to even reiterate, if any of you guys are Battlefield 4 fans, in Airsoft, I like using the Scar Light. In Battlefield 4, I like using the Scar Heavy. I kind of wish I had both. I think the Scar Heavy looks a lot cooler personally, but that's just me. So check out the Future Weapons mystery box available today. And shoot, there was actually one other thing I wanted to go over with you, Greg, but I am blanking.
About what thing in particular?
Well, if I knew it, I wouldn't be blanking, right?
It's true.
Oh, shoot. Well, I will think of it hopefully soon. But that being said, Kevin, I just want to say thank you for coming on and joining us for the live show. Really appreciate it. That's what it was. Thank you, Greg. If any of you guys are interested in getting any of these hats, and a portion of the proceeds do go to charitable organizations,
Yes.
Where can they find these hats?
So my business partner and I, we kind of did a play off of our last name. If you look at Greg's hat here, it's got the emblem that we made, and on the back it's written with Parabellum. Parabellum is basically a short quote that comes from Aristotle. That's se vici pacem. If you seek peace, Parabellum, prepare for war. And it comes from a period of time when there were clashes and civilization clashes that were fairly frequent if you know your history, and we took that as what does that really mean? It means be mighty, right? Essentially, it means be mighty. The emblem itself is the backdrop is you have the trident back there forged. Right, like any weapon system needs to be forged, just like we do as individuals. The foreground, you have the shield. That shield represents, I am my brother's keeper. And then you'll see the wise man with the beard, and I'll leave it at this, is where is he looking? If you look at the emblem online, he's looking at something that's on that shield. So it has a lot of meaning. And our hope is to raise awareness for veterans causes, specifically get these veterans engaged back in nature, hikes, climbs. There's a great organization that's getting guys to climb Everest with prosthetics. We would like to help fund some of those expeditions, get those veterans challenged. I don't want those guys sitting at home, interacting with supportive groups, engaging. It's vital. So with that being said, we have a website. It's VNB, which is Victor and spelled out AND, Bravo B, LTD for limited.com. And the VNB is Veritas and Bellum, Truth and War.
Nice.
And you can purchase hats on that website, and we'll keep you guys up to date on the organizations that we're giving to, and create some links to show what we're directly involved in and who we're supporting.
And you can get the Colonel Flag hat there too.
Yeah, and you can get the Colonel Flag hat from the movie if you're a Suicide Squad fan.
Nice. We got a couple questions here, but before we move on, if you guys do want to get some of these hats, after the show is over, we are going to put a link to where you can purchase these hats in the description of this video, so stay tuned for that. If you guys do want to take advantage of the mystery box, I would suggest doing that sooner rather than later. So get on airsoftgi.com, you can just type in Future Weapons Mystery Box, or you can scroll down and hit that mystery box tab, but we also put a link to that in the description below. All right, really quick, we just got a couple more questions before it gets too late. What are your thoughts on light machine guns? Very broad, very broad.
Right,
So.
very broad question. Well, light machine guns serve a purpose. If you look at the platforms, from Vietnam, and you had this M16 that served a purpose. And we've entered an age where war has become more sophisticated, from the individual soldier to the systems he's carrying, to the technology that's integrated into that system, and now to our weapon systems. A lot of what we do, from force multiplying groups to small units is we have to insert. And when you're inserting, you're dealing sometimes with limited space, right? So if you're talking about SDV, from a submarine.
Yep.
You're talking about an armored personnel carrier. How many guys can you fit in there with all of the gear that they're wearing nowadays and their weapon systems, right? And down to a simple vehicle. I mean, there are people out there probably right now in a thin-skinned, beat-up little car overseas targeting. And you have to ask yourself, well, do you want SCAR heavy from, if you're potentially going to engage from a car, or would you like the MP7 in your lap? Right? And it's all about performance and speed at that point, and having the ability and the accessibility of that weapon system to engage immediately if that's what you need to do. So there's multiple platforms and insertion platforms and extrication platforms that our guys and gals overseas are using. So light machine guns definitely have their place. Speed, accessibility, short, engage, quick, right? And it's all based on mission and the mission profile.
Well played. Very well played. Yes, here's the next question. Jake from State Farm Airsoft. Good to see you again.
Hey,
was the team in Suicide Squad supposed to be dev group?
No one in particular. We kind of, I know that they're referred to as SEALs, but we kind of kept it really, really vague to pay homage to everyone. I think that the SEAL teams, certainly have gotten their fair share of attention.
What?
The last couple of years, maybe 1 or 2 years, I don't know, maybe 10, maybe 15. Yeah. But Colonel Flag is the commander of that. If you're a comic fan, he's got an army background, and then all of a sudden he's the task unit commander. The unit that's attached under him are referred to as SEALs, but no, not a dev group. Just hey, we're attached to that unit because we were available.
Okay.
So.
Well, I think it's good to spread it out. That's
fantasy.
There's a lot of good variety of
Okay.
gear in the movie. You guys had Team Wendy's, it looks like airframes, and a few other
we luckily we had 3 of us up there working on this $250 million movie, and they gave us license to reach out to the vendors that supported us. I mean, if you really do your visual homework on it, we had Will Cox supporting us with some one-offs, some prototypes that are not actually out in the field.
Really?
We have those systems available to us. Team Wendy supported us. Cry supported us.
You had SNS. You had
Daniel
SNS.
Winkler, he sent up something like, I want to say, over 59 pieces, whether they were from tomahawks to belt knives to the wedge knives, and Delta dagger that Colonel Flag wears. We just had multiple systems, tons of support. Safari Land sent us a bunch of stuff. High Threat Concealment sent us a bunch of stuff. I mean, that goes on and on. Blue Force. I mean, we were very, very well taken care of by some great manufacturers out there. SNS Precision.
Yep.
You had the plate frame in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah.
cool.
So it's we did some very unique things, but we were very fortunate that we got a lot of help from the outside.
Nice. That's awesome. Let's see. The last question I think I can remember correctly is, are you familiar with Cryptex, the camo?
No.
Okay, then this probably isn't going to work as well. I know, Greg, when you first wore it, at least first time I remember seeing you wear it at Timber Spot 4 and 4.5, it was kind of weird. I'd never seen the camo before.
Yeah, the very snake skinny kind of
Yeah. And I'll be honest, not to be rude, Greg, I thought it looked stupid. But the next day, I was like, you know what, that camo probably looks really good, or probably would function really well hunting or in airsoft.
Well, Cryptex's background is as like their background is huge in hunting, the hunting community, making different kinds of like their versions of Cryptex. geared toward the hunting realm, but
Mhm.
they did come up with a few versions that were kind of geared towards the various different terrains for like military, law enforcement, and for private consumption. It's a cool looking camo. I would say like it's not quite as functional as something like Multicam Tropic, which is obviously for like the evergreen environment, or like the Pacific is a perfect theater for that. Because like you look at Mandrake, which is like their green variant, it's not quite as vibrant as Tropic, but it's not quite as tan as like their Highlander or Multicam. So I know at some games it gets kind of confusing. It almost looks like in the right lighting, it almost looks kind of tan or like Multicam.
Very true.
Because the pattern breakup is smaller, you don't get the big blotchy patterns that break people up at larger distances. So in that respect, it's not quite as effective, but it looks really cool. And I mean, once you're up close on it in certain environments, it does blend in pretty good. So it has its uses, but it definitely comes from more of a hunting.
Yeah, I mean, getting over my initial...
And it was in Jurassic World, too.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, what was I thinking?
My buddy did all the stuff for that. So.
A myriad of stuff with that. Now, let's see. We got a question from Raptor Airsoft again. Kevin, would you go to a milsim? You already answered this earlier, but a milsim event. Essentially, I mean, you already do a lot of stuff already. You know, working in the entertainment industry, doing work with the fire department, jiu-jitsu, family life. So, you know, I would assume you wouldn't have time to go try an airsoft event.
No, I wouldn't say that. It's really a matter of time. I would say this: if someone's calling me out, he's on my team. Bring it. You know, if we get that window,
hey, maybe
stand by. I'll be learning from these guys because it'll be my first, experience. So you got to give me a little bit of break there, but don't think that I'll hold back.
Well, you were always more than welcome to any of our events, absolutely. In fact, Greg you brought out, what was that other gentleman you brought to BB Wars that literally leapt through the window with 1.5 jumps?
Oh, you're talking about Steve?
Yeah,
yeah, he was a second bad guy.
He was in Suicide Squad too?
No, okay. So you're talking about BB Wars, or are you talking about Rebel Training Camp?
Talking about BB. Well. He's an Army Ranger.
Yeah, you're talking about Rebel Training Camp.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was my buddy. He was Stephen Bell. He was second. No, he was third bad guy. Okay, not second, the third bad guy. Sorry, but he. I'm trying to remember when he was in, but he lives up in NorCal now. But
yeah.
Really, really nice guy. Built like a brick house. Looks like this guy.
Yeah, yeah. That was the first time because I went barrel to barrel with this guy, and.
He's instantly...
No, he literally, we came around the corner, went barrel to barrel, and then before I could literally even react, he drops the ground, puts two in my chest. I'm like, oh my God, you are awesome. I'm so dead.
So
goodbye.
He dropped to change the angle.
Yeah, no, before I could react.
He was a cool guy to play with. This is a great guy.
He knew what he was doing. All right, that being said, Kevin, you're always welcome back. You're always welcome to join us at our events, and we are very gladly going to help promote your hats as much as we can. But I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for coming out here and joining us.
It's been my pleasure, and it's been my honor. Anything I can do to help you guys out in the future, let me know, and spread any awareness that you guys want to spread out there, any cause you guys want to spread. And, thanks to the community out there for watching and paying attention to I don't know what on my end anyway. I hope I was enlightening on some level for you guys, and thanks Greg for bringing me in.
Yeah, of course.
I'll be honest, like if I could pick your brain for 3 hours, especially after all that philosophy and combat philosophy you're talking about, it's very interesting. And just before we end, I just give you guys a little bit of it. I mean, you were talking about how much more bonding you can do when you have a shared experience or a group suffering together, correct?
Yeah, it's something that I like to introduce in all the immersive training, in movies is, if actors and or a crew is trying to serve a singular purpose, for a movie, it's easy to, let's say, take a weapon system and work through simple physical drills, but, the bond that people share, it bleeds over onto screen. You look at Mike Pena and Jake Gyllenhaal on screen together, there was chemistry. That's just not acting. They had to have a bond. They had to spar every day. They had to fight one another. They had to, they had to get pissed off at one another, just like brothers do. And there's a psychology to that. The military uses it every day, putting guys under stress and challenging them and creating competition. But in boot camps as well is really referring to what you're talking about as a collective suffering.
Yeah.
When you suffer together, right, you grow together, but you also there's fusion. right? And cohesion is built, camaraderie is built, and that shared experience lasts forever. I mean, granted, we talked about Monty today. I haven't seen Monty in years, and the scar system, and look where he is today. And
Yep.
I look back and I pretty much lived with that guy for like 7 months, but I'll never forget him. And he's on to some great things. So I'm really happy for him.
And yeah, it is a small world how we don't meet
because
them.
he works
So.
with PTS.
Yeah.
That's one of our partners.
Guys, really, and I know a lot of you guys really don't want us to end the stream for good reason, but I do want to get to one last question from a gentleman who's been asking for a while, and I apologize, Jim, the AK man, I didn't get to it. Let me just scroll up so I can get it correctly. Oh, there we go. Kevin, did you see 13 Hours, and in your pro opinion, how accurate was it to how things are done?
Okay. So that's a kind of a loaded question.
Absolutely.
I have to answer it this way, to be fair. I'm too close to the subject to be fair. Ty Woods was a very good friend of mine. I have not seen the movie. I apologize, but I am the godson to Ty Woods' son. It's something very close to me. I repatriated Ty's body into the country with his lovely wife, who's doing very well. And little Kai is growing up to be an amazing little man. So 13 Hours is one of those subjects where it's will I look at a movie to appreciate it? No, just because of the subject matter will affect me in a way that I don't think I can be objective. So sorry.
Well, that's perfectly all right. I really appreciate your honesty, and I'm sorry for bringing up a sensitive
No,
subject.
it's all good.
You go to hell, sir. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for our live show, August 16th, 2016. Again, Kevin, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Greg, go to hell. And make sure to check out the PTS stock when it goes live later this month.
Yep. It's coming out very soon.
That's right.
$45.
$45.
Yep.
And again, if you guys want these hats that Kevin and Greg are wearing, we're going to put a link in the description below once this video is over. And if you want to take advantage of our mystery box, we'll be doing the same. Or you can go on airsoftyaw.com, search Future Weapons Mystery Box. Once again, I'm Bob the Axeman Hildebrand. This is Greg Wong, a.k.a. Spartan117GW. Find him online on YouTube, Facebook.
PTS.
And this is Kevin Vance, and you can be found at vnbltd.com. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. God bless America. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.